Ballin'! He's back. The MicroStakes Maniac. Hey guys, dr.giggy, the MicroStakes Maniac. He's back with two tables of 25.50 cents. This video I'm gonna try to talk a lot and develop a lot about hand reading. Probably gonna be only a single part video, although if it goes really well I could go for like 2 or 3 parts. I don't know yet, depending on what's going on. And like I said, I'm gonna try to talk about a lot about hand reading. Last video at MicroStakes that I did, I talked a lot about the value of playing loose, playing super aggressive right from the beginning in your poker career. But now I'm gonna talk a lot about what I think is basically the very most important uh, skill in poker, basically, because every single good and very good player that I know is a good hand reader. It's like you have at some point to have at least some good basis in hand reader, and most of the time, better the player, the better his hand reading is, because that's just so huge. Basically, I'm not gonna expand too much on that right off the bat. Gonna try to talk about that a bit later. Uh, what I'll try to be doing is basically hand read everything that's going on at the tables. Try to put people on specific hands, even in pots that I'm not playing, if I don't have anything to do, basically, if I don't think about something else to talk about. I've been playing for a couple of orbits now, already took a couple of notes, basically all stating that I'm seated with a bunch of retards, so that could be useful later. Tables look really soft. Probably a couple of regs, just from the names, probably this guy and this guy might be regs. Once again, guys, I'm really sorry too for my lack of HUD, but my computer is just the biggest piece of crap right now, and my old manager doesn't even want to open. Like, I cannot even check out my DB or whatever. So I've just been doing without it for the most part lately. So I'm gonna have to skip until I reformat my computer, which I should and probably will do soon. So no HUD for this one. Sorry once again. One day I'll have one. So that's pretty much it, basically. Uh, like I said, I have some weird notes on the player so far. I'm gonna try to play pretty aggressive, put myself in some interesting spots, etc. Here, this guy raises. The only note that I have is that thing, which is not really a note, more something like very funny stuff for me. So I elect to re-raise. Is open there, and he calls out of position. Calls pretty quickly, so I don't think he's slow playing very big, like ever. I'm gonna continue on that board and see what happens. Gonna react a lot to timing and of course board texture, which are gonna be super important here. Check calls pretty quickly again, which I think with the boat quit calls, I'm not gonna be right every single time. I think that is very often a something like a mid pocket pair, so I think a couple of barrels are gonna get him off that. Otherwise, could be something like Jack 10 that he's gonna fold to. Could be Jack Queen or something like that too, but I do think that if he is too, sorry about the size of all that, once again because of some computer problems. But yeah, if he is going to, I hope that works well. Almost get the stack in there. Yeah, whatever. To play something like Jack Queen on the flop, I think he's gonna at least think a bit before like making move. Basically, what I'm telling you here about timing tells, which are gonna be a huge part of hand reading when you get better and better at poker, especially at these stakes. It's super important, and basically just free information that people are giving you is that with that Like if he had any draw on that board, he would. Normally, that's gonna not gonna be true for 100% of people. At least think about putting in a check raise or something like that. Maybe he's gonna check out, but he's gonna like take a bit of time most of the time there. So it is like quick call pre-flop, quick call on the flop is my default read without any further read from the guy, except that he looks like he's playing pretty normal so far. Haven't seen him open limp. He was raising to pot pre-flop, which is pretty standard. So I just assume he was playing normal so far because that was my read. So I assumed that his most likely holdings were mid pocket pairs, and the turn was a very good guard for me to barrel him on. If I did not turn that card, I probably would still try and barrel him off, unless like it's a really shitty card on the turn. I don't know exactly, but any break, I think I'm trying to barrel him off his hand. Any overcard, of course, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Other cards, I'm still not sure. Missed a couple of hands. Sorry, I'm talking a lot, which I hope is good. Here I get a call from the guy on the small blind. I already have. Oh, he's from France too. He's not gonna be very good at that. Sorry about French people listening, but you tend to not be very good. So I'm gonna raise that. That's just like standard fish calling out of position and dunk leading a random board, which he doesn't ever hit. Seriously, it's like that's always a bluff, basically. I'm not gonna expend that much on that, unless you have any read that the guy is not a total retard. When you're facing a retard who's like dunk betting into you and that kind of board, they just never ever have anything. So when you assume that they don't have anything, your best play is gonna come pretty easily to you, whether it is raising or whatever else. This guy opens for X, pretty interesting. He takes some effort to at least type in his bet amount, not just clicking pot. So he could be thinking about stuff that could be useful to know later. Yep. That's pretty much it. We've got fish. We've got, I don't know if he's reg yet, and other stuff. So yeah, back to hand reading. Don't remember what I wanted to. Yeah, I just wanted to point out that hand reading, if you're listening to that video, obviously you're pretty much probably still playing smaller stakes. And I'm gonna tell you right now that hand reading is basically I think in my opinion, it is the most important skill to have in your poker game. Except maybe tilt control and bankroll management, that kind of stuff. As far as playing goes and skills, like pure skills, I think hand reading is the best one, because as soon as you can hand read very precisely, here sorry for cutting my thought, I'm gonna come back on that. I think if I raise here, I'm not gonna get a lot of folds, but I still want to play that good looking of hand on the cutoff against a fish and with another fish on the button. So I'm gonna limp back and see what happens. You don't absolutely have to raise. Here it's like dead money, free dead money most of the time. Here it's gonna go like check. With that type of board, I can fire off like 120, 25 and get away with it very, very often. Not every single time, of course, but and I still have something in case someone calls me with ace high or whatever, or tries to pull something really weird on me. So coming back to hand reading, what I was going to say is, here that guy raises again, standard call on my part and cut off. I'm not gonna focus a lot on my own play, I'm gonna try to focus on my opponent's plays. But back to hand reading, what I was about to say for real. Wait a second, I'm gonna talk about this then. He check out and then leads into me, which I don't think ever makes any sense. I think I'm more worried about something like pocket fives than any ace. I think if he has an ace, he's gonna check it again. So I think he's like poorly trying to represent an ace on me most of the time there. Here, 2 checks, I think I have the best hand most of the time. Gonna bet 2 basically for protection. Hope sometimes this guy makes something really weird, or Like this guy pretty much never has anything. I'm just buying the initiative for later streets in case he does. So I should get to showdown cheaper. Uh, and coming back to here, like I said, I don't think he has an ace ever. Uh, Egg is a very, very bad card though, but I don't expect him to fire if he has a pair of eggs because it gets all the open enders and gutters. I just think he's gonna be like super full of shit a lot, but at the same time, I don't think he calls with. I would like to have more time here, and it sucks that I no longer have time bank. But yeah, the egg is too much of a bad card, I think, for me to call the river there because he he could sometimes show up with an ace there, or he could show up a lot actually with a six, since we were four-ended on the flop, which is another important thing. The part that I thought would make him weaker was that he was last to act in the four-ended thing, so he could do a play with any kind of crap, any kind of weird float. That's why I called the turn. If lifted one would have called there, I'm never ever calling the turn. I'm just assuming my hand is pretty much dead by the turn. But here with that weird guy doing what he's doing, I'm just gonna give up. Not give up. No, that's not what I wanted. So I'm just gonna call the turn for a reason explained. And since the egg on the river, here I think it's called three-way. Do have to take a flop. Hope to flop the nuts, which I don't do. But yeah, back to that. Queen 4. Here he limps, but then refuses to bet such a drawy board, so I don't think he ever has anything, and I think I can get him off pretty much almost all of his range with two barrels. Sometimes he's gonna call me with ace high on the turn, but then never ever gonna call the river, because if he was any, like if he had anything strong, I think he would bet that flop ever because of all the draws, the texture of the board. Sometimes I'm gonna get raised on the turn, and it's gonna be a 4 pretty much always. When I do get called, like time banks and calls me, I think I can get him off. All of it's mid pairs if I bet big enough, because I don't think he's gonna try to end read me. I do have to bet pretty quick though to not get him too suspicious. So if I bet just, and I was wrong, and he ended up calling me with a side, which I did not expect, and I can make a note on that. My read was super good. I just didn't think that guy was calling down to streets with a side. No big deal. Ace queen plus call turn plus river. Very important for future uses. Here, yeah, the egg was completing too much stuff. So since I don't think that people just call the flop with like absolutely nothing, like very rarely, and the egg completes a 7-8. I said I don't think he bets an 8 often, but then again, it just looks like he's totally clueless, so he could have that. I would remove an 8, something like 7-8 on the river against someone who I don't think is gonna bet an 8. But since he's just like basically clicking buttons from what I've seen so far from him, like cold calling 3-bet and stuff like that, and he ended up having, what the hell? Check. Okay, he ended up turning and then check. Okay, that was weird. So yeah, he could have an 8, and he could have any straight basically that turned into, and ended up being something at least. Here, pretty much same reasons as earlier. That guy, I saw him open limp earlier, so I'm gonna limp at position with basically the same hand. Try to take a pot, as many pots as possible. So I'm gonna come back on what I wanted to say about end reading. I'm gonna come to it. No, don't worry, guys. Here I could call in position, but I think people are playing so weak against 3 bets at these limits most of the time that I think re-raising position is has a bit more value actually. Gonna fire pretty small, try to fire 3 barrels, take him off basically anything by the river. If he check raises me, he's gonna have a draw lot, flush draw lot on that flop, but I can't do anything because I basically have 9 high. So I'm just gonna win the pot like that very, very often. Here, a pretty tricky spot. I elected to check back my queen for pretty much obvious reasons, I think. And That's it. Now the small blind limbs. What I have on him is that he totally misplayed a middle pair earlier. Here, too much value. I'm gonna raise that. I think I can call the turn. You think he's gonna fire with a lot of draws. Could fire with like uh, basically any two cards because he think that nobody wants of this, but nobody has anything. So yeah. And when he bets the river, I'm pretty much dead every time. Could have folded the turn once again. It was pretty close. Maybe I should have folded the turn just because of my kicker and that he's gonna show up with a better queen sometimes in that spot. Uh, Here I get like dunk lead again. I'm gonna raise super small, trying to make him do something really, really tricky, really weird, like something like middle pair. Or I just try to build a pot. Or I think if I raise small here, I can represent something very strong in his eyes. Even though he's a fish, I'm like raising and raising every straight. I could make him fall like a middle pair by the river, or like make him come over the top with super like total bluff on the flop and then I shove over. So when he dunks leads, basically he looks like he's full of shit so far. Mm, yeah, finally I have some time to talk to you about end reading. And now I forgot what I wanted to say. No, is that as soon as you have to put a lot of effort in being able to end read your opponents, because as soon as you've mastered that part of your skills, the rest is basically basic logic, to be honest. And I see a lot of people putting way too much time into things, into theories or whatever that are not that important. Because if they spend that time trying to end read better, just play the game and thinking while playing and putting people on ranges and doing some maths with that with the rangers or whatever, doing some feeling things and stuff, they would realize that when by the turn or river you can put an opponent on only a small range of hands, basically, uh, you're you're just good unless you're totally retardant. Once you know what he has, basically, the good play is gonna come by itself and it's gonna make you a lot better. You just realize yourself what the good play is once you know what he has, and you're not gonna be applying some like pre-made concepts and trying to like, oh, what's that river, good river play in that spot. I think I saw this spot like somewhere in another video or whatever. You're gonna go ahead and think like, okay, I think this guy has mid impair or top pair weak kicker or something like that most of the time. So with my end, I think I can make him fold with a raise or something like that. You're just gonna get a lot better. You're just gonna play better and play better in the long term too. A lot, a lot, a lot. So that's pretty much what I wanted to say about that. I'm gonna try to talk about the value of initiative too, if I get some time. Now I'm gonna talk a bit about the actual ends because I've been talking alone a lot. By now, 2 and 5 offsuit is not a good hand, but it's not important because if you can hand read, you could pull out a bluff with that. Who knows? But not this time. I said I wanted to try and end read and look at pots that I'm not playing in, but not much success in that so far. I've been talking way too much to think at the same time. Sorry about that. Here I pretty much have the absoluteness, and I think this guy is capable of making very weird stuff from what I saw earlier. So since I don't have any value from a lot of things, like there are not that many kings left in the board, and with his wide big blind calling range, he's just gonna be like totally full of shit so often. But I still want to try to build a pot in case he does have a king or whatever. I'm gonna go ahead and bet super small and hope he brain farts with my timing and my super small bets, and that he tries like weird check raise and then try to bluff of other streets. I think a standard bet here is really, really bad, especially against someone who proved us that he could call a couple of streets with ace high if you bet like if you go weird enough, if he's suspicious enough of something going on, I do assume that he could do some bluff, some weird check raises that don't make any sense for the same reasons. Here, pretty marginal call with a7 suited on the big blind. I think it sure is good because of the fish were previously limped, and I assumed that we would be 3 away. Heads up with like a 4 point something X raise from the cutoff. I'm pretty much never calling this unless I have a big read on the guy. Now I don't. I wanted to be 3 with my ace X suited. Did not end up really good, and now I'm stuck heads up with a middle pair, which kind of sucks. He raises in continuation bets. I don't have any info on this guy so far, so I'm gonna assume that he has the standard end range so far, and see what happens later. I'm gonna do like the standard playoff check calling. I don't think I have anything else to do. Pretty interesting. I do turn a flush draw to go along. Here I think he's gonna try to make it like single street bluff a lot, and I do have that flush draw. And here, just to gain info, like it's pretty marginal call. If he's weak enough, I tend to think that he's gonna give up on the river, so I could be good. And if he's strong, I do have a draw to the absolute nuts. So there are a couple of ways that I can win that pot, and I could win a pretty big pot. So I end up calling on the turn. To be honest, I really don't know. Like, I know that if he has any clue on how to play, and so far he hasn't done anything totally stupid, so I do think that he's gonna be not too bad most of the time. Sorry, I lost train of thought. I was thinking about stuff. Here I do think that he's gonna be super strong most of the time, but since a lot of, like, don't make this call at home. I'm just doing this for the video purposes. I think I'm beaten a lot. Yeah, when they overshove, they pretty much always have the nuts. It's just a super bad call. Just don't make it. I just wanted to show you something that I was gonna explain that later. I knew it was basically a bad call. It was basically giving away money there. But yeah, whatever. Coming back on the end, when he bets the flop, I don't have any info other than he looks like he kind of knows what he's doing. When he bets the turn, I think that if he knows what he's doing at least a little bit, he's gonna fire that turn with his bluffs basically 100% of time, because it's pretty much the best double barrel card in the whole deck. And I do have a couple of ways to win that, but even though I don't have direct odds for my calls. So flop and turn are pretty much very easy in my opinion. And on the river, his range when he shoves is super polarized. He's gonna have basically the nuts. I don't expect him to even like overshove for value with ace king here or aces. Just a mental thing from most of the people. And since the board like fouled off so good for him to bluff me and to go for 3 barrels, he could sometimes be bluffing here with like ace jack, ace queen, jack queen or stuff like that. But at the same time, I never saw so many bluffs like that at this limit. So I did assume he was good most of the time. Just wanted to make sure, basically giving away money here, but I knew it. But yeah, that's a kind of spot where hand reading is gonna depend like basically 100% on specific read that you have on your opponent. Oh, that's a nice open ender. See what happens with dammy dam. Now he dunk leads me again, and now I'm really scared because the last 2 times he dunk led me, even though he was full of shit, I do assume that he probably has at least like a part of brain, and he could be doing that with like a better draw than mine, and I certainly don't want with that hand to like get bet 3 bet with like flush or a nut flush draw or something like that. And since I've raised the last 2 times he dunk led into me, he's probably like going for, probably has something in mind when he does it again. Now he bets again. I think his range is gonna be air, draw, lots of draws, or a 10. I think I can stack a 10 basically every time I hit, and air and draws, I could win the pot on the river if something like that happens. Could have mid pair that he's not gonna fold as well. So let's see what happens. Just coming back on the a7. Yeah, what I was saying about that is my hand reading is like most of the time it's 100% like opponent specific and how I think he plays. Now in this spot, I don't think he ever folds a pair because all the draws I've missed, but I do think he has air or draw himself very often. So I'm just gonna bet super weak and hope to get away with it, make him fold his busted draws and his total air. I'm actually believing that he's gonna call me with ace high there if he does have ace high, and he should call me with ace high. Like my bluff against any good opponent is totally horrible basically, but since I'm against a bad player who could have just told air and he was gonna fold queen high and king high pretty much always, I think it is okay. Now he check raises me. That's weird. Could have a 10, but he could have a busted draw a lot. I think this shove is very good actually, to be honest. I think he has to fold, of course, if he has nothing at all. Not many combos of 10s. I think it was what I was talking about earlier, the busted draws and airs who thought my river bet was so weak that wanted to steal the pot away from me. So I put that right back in his mouth and stole back the pot from him. So pretty nice pot that I just won 100% with my hand reading abilities, basically. Taking back some money that I gave away on the river call on the earlier hand, which I knew was pretty bad anyway. But yeah, that was 100% in reading. So good example of that in action. Coming back to that, yeah, it was gonna be 100% opponent specific. As soon as I know that the guy kind of has a clue on how to play, I'm gonna be more and more willing to call the turn there because it's perfect second barrel card and people are just gonna second barrel that almost 100% of time. If I think the guy is just super nit and he pretty much always has at least a king when he bets again on the turn, then I could fold the turn right away. Even though I do have odds with my art straw, so it's gonna be closer. And two, if I know that the guy is someone who like two barrels sometimes, but not always, and he's gonna two barrel with like pair of tens for thin value there, which I don't think a lot of people at these limits are capable of, and that he's gonna three barrel a good amount too, but not every single time. I think he's just well balanced and tough to play. I could fold it right away on the turn, and my perception of his range is gonna change a lot. Like here on the turn, I did not know that much about like what he could have because I did not know that much about the actual guy, but where was I going with that? Yeah, but since sorry, I'm really sorry, really sorry. Yeah, I think I've summed it up. Basically, I just seriously my brain just froze totally. But yeah, to sum up the end, marginal call pre-flop, horrible call on the river. But I just wanted to get the info right, and I got busted. To be honest, like all the history of like having polarized range and whatever at these limits is pretty much thrown away most of the time when the guy overbets the river. Seriously, like any reg nit that is not capable of pulling out big bluffs, no matter how good the board looks and how good of a bluff spot it is or whatever, I'm really serious here. Don't out-level yourself into calling over bets on the river because you tell yourself, oh, his range is so polarized between like a bluff or total air or total nuts, and there are not that many nuts in his range or whatever. Against most like reg slash nits, they're gonna have it 100% of time almost. Like I see so many people throw away money, and that could be my very most useful advice of all this video. I see so many people throw away money with bad river calls against nits, because they try too hard and they outlevel themselves so bad, when actually it is a pretty good example of what I was saying, that your hand reading has to be opponent specific. The nit basically always has it when he raises you on the river, or when he overshoves into you or whatever. So that was a good example. And a good example of the opponent specific thing is that hand that I played. If I was against a nit on that river, like, my thought process on the river is that since all hand long I was thinking that he was having a draw or total air or a 10 most of the time with his timing, sizing, whatever, and that on the river he's gonna check raise with a 10, I think, very often the way the hand played out. But since he's so like retarded and whatever, I think he's gonna check raise a lot of his air too. I do think he is actually gonna do it. That's my point. While against another player who I see as nitty, even though like there are not that many combos of 10x that are gonna get to the river, just because there are 3 10s on the board and he did limp under the gun. He's gonna have it every time. Even if there are like 2 combos in the whole world that give him the nuts, if the guy is a nit, he has it every time. So shoving there would have been a total waste of money, like calling with A7 earlier. But since I know that this guy, if he has air, he is gonna do it. He is actually gonna raise my bet just to win the pot. Then my shove over it becomes really, really good. So don't just go ahead and put the hand reading and then take a shitty decision with your hand reading. You want to be able to apply your hand reading to the person, and don't outlevel yourself into like seeing so many, like, believing there are way too much weird stuff or whatever. I have sentences in my mind in French that I can't really translate, but yeah, basically don't think that there are big schemes against you, that the guy is always bluffing or whatever when he's in it and raising, or when he could have hit most of the time, but he is, yeah, whatever. Sorry about that again. Sorry. I did elect to fold my king queen out of position there, because I haven't seen him do anything so far as re-raising. So I do have to assume that he's gonna be pretty strong most of the time. He could do it with anything, but when I'm out of position, I don't want to get myself into a pot where I'm gonna have to make weird assumptions on how I think someone is gonna play or whatever. So I decided to just give up. Here, I could have c-bet that flop and used the 3 basically as outs, as like semi-bluff, try to make him fold in mid pocket pairs. But since I think he's going pretty wide on the button, we'll have king x, queen x, I don't think the c-bet is so good. And I just hope that he's checking down his airs, or my 3 might be good, so that's a good argument for the check. Against a better player in that spot, I'm gonna, most of the time, gonna be barreling off my ass. Just because there are not that many hands in a good players like calling range on the button that can stand off 3 big barrels there. Plus, right on the flop, there are so many medium pairs, stuff like queen jack that are gonna fold to second or third barrel. King jack might fold to that if you have good image too. If you're playing against someone who can hand read, actually, any medium pair is gonna probably like fold on the flop or turn. So you just win the pot way more often than by trying to check it down, especially if you're against someone who is gonna bluff you when you check. If you're against someone passive, the check becomes obviously better on the flop. I know I was talking about something else, but I don't remember well. Yeah, the king queen. I don't want to get into a pot where I'm gonna have to make some weird assumptions, like I said, about how the guy could be playing, and I'm just basically not gonna be able to hand read well, just because I don't have a clue on how he's gonna play most of his hand ranges. So I decided to fold right away. And that brings me to the other thing that I wanted to find time to talk about, and that is initiative, which is, I think, very, very important. Try to remember that uh, the the less good your opponents are, the more important initiative is. Uh, because initiative does a couple of things. First, and I initiative, I mean either being the original razor preflip or the original re-razor, or just like stealing away with like a mini re-raise preflip or something like that. I'm gonna try to put that into action here with like super small mini re-raise on the button, just to get the initiative. Uh, what it does is that when both people have nothing, you win the pot pretty much every single time against not too aggressive players. That's first. That's pretty important. That's huge. Uh, Second thing, against a passive slash weak slash tight opponent, uh, I could win the pot right away here, which is pretty good since it was basically a min race. Uh, I'm gonna be able to make them fold everything but the top of their range by the river, because I can always, with initiative, basically you can represent such a big range of hands in someone who's not that good eyes. Uh, Once again, I'm gonna go for it here. Initiative, baby. Yeah, baby. Re-raise, baby, and then barrel. That's pretty tricky. I do flip an open ender, which is perfect to see my bluff, actually. Hope that he folds right away. It's like super good board to see bet with my re-raise, or that he has an ace and I end up rivering a runner flush. He raises me, which is pretty much unexpected. His range has to be super polarized here between the nuts or nothing at all. I think if I do call, I think I could win sometimes, but against nothing at all, and since I do have a draw to the nuts, I could hit that and make a lot of monies against a very good hand, and I still am able to represent like ace king, ace six, or whatever by calling. And I do think I have to fire. I think when he does check back that turn, he is more likely to have the weaker side, the hair side of his range that I was talking about, and I can still represent ace queen, ace king, something like that. So I do think I have to fire, make him fold. All of his nothing hands. Gonna be a lot of broadaways actually on that board. Board texture is really important when you end read. King queen, jack queen, king jack are gonna be playing that way very often. Just raising the flop because they don't know better. Try to take down the pot right away. I don't think he's ever like raising that flop with ace queen. That's very, very unlikely. Sorry, that's the right word. Because of his skill level, in my opinion, that could be like someone better could do that, but not him. I don't think so. And when he checks back the turn, basically he's stuck with like all of his broadway is pretty much air. Since I don't think he's raising with a6 on the flop, and he's not like he probably bets all of his nuts type hands on the river on the turn. Sorry, I think he basically has nothing at all most of the time on the river. I did make my bet like it's not very big, I know, but against the hand range that I thought he had, it is pretty big because I think I could have gotten away with a $15 bet here, but still I don't want him to get curious with like king jack, king queen, like, or king jack that thought I could have like queen jack or something like that. So another good example of good hand reading there. He's too short to make that profitable. I'm out of here. And my Jazzman friend here raised me again. I'm gonna come back on initiative. I know I cut short in my thoughts. Sorry about that. I think I do have to make a very small 4-bet. It does not look like he's very intelligent. I don't want to get him off the hook. And I do want to build the pot, and I do want him to ship if he has ace king. I don't think he's ever folding ace king there. So, and I've been pretty active too. So, He's gonna call if he has nothing, yeah. And I built a pretty decent pot. I do hope it does not have queens or king jack or something weird like that. I think my best option against someone who was playing so weirdly is to check here and try to represent his king. Hope he goes berserk with something weird, like calls me two streets, turn river with like pocket tens, or just shove like that and have seven. So I think the check is definitely my best option on that flop against that specific opponent. So pretty standard hand, but I do think I've maximized my value very well there because I was able to get a good read on the guy earlier. Couple of times he re-raised me, was playing very active, open limping, doing weird stuff. So I did expect him to like call the 4-bet and do something weird most of the time, and do something weird if I check the flop too. So ship it. Coming back on initiative, I think actually I do have a lot of stuff to say about initiative, and I think I'm gonna make another video on about that someday. I think that could be a better idea because I did talk a lot in that one, and I think there's pretty good stuff in there about hand reading, so I'm not gonna try to mix up stuff too much. I'm gonna go ahead with another session another day and talk about initiative, I think, or just make some weird PowerPoint, but I'm way too lazy about that, so forget that. Could raise there. Like, I'm gonna raise sometimes against a table of bad guys, but here with two deep people, pretty active on with position on me, plus the big blind looking like he's not very good and probably gonna defend pretty wide. I don't want to open too wide in that spot, and 6-9 suited is certainly very, very wide. But if I was against like all 100 big blinds deep, not too active, nitty reg players, I would open that for sure. I think I could play that possibly with some good end reading. So yeah, remember that hand reading is basically the best skill that you can have, and it's gonna lead into a lot more important skills, like if you end read well, every other single skills like bluffing and timing on your bluffs and timing on your thin values and stuff like that is going to come by itself, because you're going to be able to think by yourself about specific actions to take depending on situations and stuff like that. So work on that as much as you can, and I think the best way to work on your hand reading is to actually play the game and play not too many tables, play like 2, 3, 4 tables, especially early in your poker career, to try and maximize that skill as soon as possible. Here, I'm gonna go ahead and make my tricky play, re-raising small in position, because I do think he's gonna call with dominated ends a lot with that small of a raise, and I do have position, so I want first to be able to control the betting, and second to build a bigger pot because we're so deep and I do have position. I just want to play bigger pots in position. If I was against someone who I suspect is going to have a good 4-betting range there, then I'm certainly not going to be doing that, because he could 4-bet me out of my hand and it's going to be a like sucky spot for me and it would steal me back the initiative. But against the guy who I suspect is going to call out of position most of the time, I think building the pot pre-flop and gaining the initiative in case the board comes off like all bricks and you're pretty close, I'm just gonna fold because I don't feel like playing it. Like anything deeper than 100 big blinds on the left, I'm certainly calling, but 100 big blinds square, I think it's pretty close with 6-7 suited. I would call it like 8-9 suited and up for sure, but 6-7 whatever, without much reads on post flop play other than he's weird, so it's gonna be like not fun to play against someone weird. But coming back on that, yeah, initiative is going to be important there, because if board breaks, I'm going to be winning the pot most of the time on the flop. If I do hit something, I'm going to be able to pot control a lot better. If I'm not sure if it's good, and if I want to like value thin or stuff like that, then it's going to be easier for me. Here, that was a beautiful flop. Like, mega way pot, draw to the nuts, that's always very welcome. But with that guy leading first to act and so many players, let's say, like, let's forget this guy. Let's say this guy folded, because now it's an easy fold for me and there's not much to talk about. But let's say that first guy leads into us, even if he doesn't lead pot, because I think it's very like easy fold because of his amount. Let's say he leads like 6 or 7. It's gonna be a fold. Well, yeah, not actually, because I do think he's gonna be stronger. My point actually is that he's gonna be a lot stronger because of his position and because of how many guys are in that hand. And that's something that you want to be aware of. I should make a list of stuff that is important to take consideration when you try to end read. I'm gonna try to make it like off my head right now. I should have made that earlier. That would have been a good idea. Too boring. Like, too bad I'm too lazy for that. But board texture super important. Like when there are gutters that are there on certain boards but not there on other boards. That is really important to be aware of what's there, what's not there, how bad it's gonna affect his range, how much more likely he's gonna be to have like air on the river because he had a gutter on the flop or stuff like that. I'm just talking in generalities. So board texture is important. Your opponent, your specific opponent, is obviously the very most important aspect that you want to take into account. And apart from that, there are like a lot of things. Timing tells, very important. You're gonna develop that as you get better and better. My basic timing tells, unless I catch something on a specific player, which I do a lot, not a lot, but which I can do sometimes. My basic timing tells against unknowns are gonna be one that is pretty much always working is when someone acts really quick. Most of the time he's either on a draw, on like a mid pair that's trying to get to showdown super cheap. So you want to act accordingly to that. Here I like to call basically just set mining. Probably gonna call 1-3 depending on his sizings, because we saw earlier that he can bet the flop with pretty much nothing. Don't know if it's gonna give up, but now I'm talking to my hat because he ended up checking. I think my best play, I could check again here and like hope to check it down, but I think my best play is like to lead super small. I don't want to lead too big because I'm only gonna get action by like a jack or better. By leading small, I think I'm gonna get called. I could have gone for like half the pot maybe, but I'm gonna get called by like a 5 from that guy. Sometimes I'm gonna protect my hand, which is pretty important, I think, when it's so dangerous. I'm gonna get called with like by king X and ace X with the king or the ace of clubs 100% of the time from that guy. So that's basically protection / value / pot control and / gain the initiative and being able to play the river easier and make less mistakes on the river by taking the initiative and putting myself in an easier spot on the river than like if I check and then that guy checks and then that guy bets and then I have to call and then he folds and then the river comes a break and then I check and he bets again and I don't know if he has like an ace of clubs or whatever. By controlling the action there, I'm gonna make my river decisions a lot easier, I think. Nothing at all. Yeah, timing tells is important. That's what I was talking about on end reading. I think that guy just arrived at the table and that he posted, so he's likely to have like any 2 cards that he's just gonna give up. Yeah, that's what I think. I'm not sure about that. Nope, that was totally wrong. It was already there, but just give up being anyway. So cool. Other than these things that I've talked about on end reading, of course, ranges like pre-flop ranges, flop ranges, turn ranges, and being able to dissect someone's ranges, and that's basically the essence of end reading. being able to visualize a range while the hand is being played, and as like every single information that you get on your opponent during the hand, you can try and narrow his range down to so few hands by the river that you just crush his soul. So that's basically, I'm probably forgetting something. Probably gonna revisit that that series anyway later for you MicroStakers. So small stakers, actually. I'm sorry if the word micro offends you or whatever, but I hope it gets good reviews, because I do think there are important stuff to learn out of these videos. It's the second one I make. Watch the first one too. I think it was pretty good. This one I think was more theoretical, but still we had some very interesting practical spots. So that's pretty cool. So if I forgot something about hand reading, I'm gonna come back on that in another video. I do want to talk about initiative a lot more, because it's so important. People overlook that aspect of the game a lot. Even at higher stakes, I see a lot of people losing value by not understanding the power of initiative. So I'm going to be talking about that later too. And I'm going to end that on playing my kings, because it's a nice way to end a video. No matter what happens, even if I lose, it's going to be fun. No, that's the only way that it ended up not being fun at all. So anyway, hope you like that. I'm probably gonna create another thread for that video in the forums, guy. Once again, please, if you have any questions, post them in the forums, not in the reply to the video section, not in the comment section of this video, because that thing is just a pain in the ass. So in the forum, guy, I'm gonna create a new thread for this one, and there's the old Jiggy MicroStakes thread that you can post into if you have any more generic questions about other videos, or just hand that you played yourself, or whatever that you tried to apply some concepts that I talked about. So that's pretty much it. Hope you like that. Give me some feedback. Tell me if a lot of people watch this. Just tell me how badly you want new videos or whatever, if there's a big field of players who want videos at these limits. So bye bye. See you again. See you later. See you another day.